I have one question. Do you really want to taste it? Hello, my name is Connor and welcome to Nerd's Paradise. Peacemaker was pretty good, right? I mean, I liked Peacemaker. The first 3 episodes of the DCU's very first foray into the world of streaming service content, I think, went off like gangbusters. James Gunn has always had a style that I enjoy. His Guardians of the Galaxy movies obviously speak for themselves, and personally I think The Suicide Squad might be one of my, if not my favourite DCEU movie, constantly wrestling with Shazam to be my personal favourite. So when I left the movie theatre and I realised that there was going to be a spin-off series featuring Peacemaker with James Gunn at the helm, I was optimistic. Not excited, but optimistic. And my optimism was rewarded because I personally quite liked it and am excited to see where the show continues going. That being said, Peacemaker being great is actually bad for me. Because when something like that, like a show or a movie or even a video game, is really good, I get an itch to buy action figures. Yeah. So this is my first foray into the McFarlane DC Multiverse line, which I have been holding off from getting for a couple of reasons. One, I already have a collection of DC figures that's all like Mezco, and those are 6-inch, while this is 7-inch, so I wasn't sure if they were actually going to like fit in together. But the other reason was because before McFarlane took over the DC stuff, the 6-inch lines for DC figures were inconsistent. Like, we had DC Icons, which was really good, but they lasted 2 waves. And then you had the DC Multiverse stuff, which lasted way longer, but when it started to, in my opinion, look really good as a toy line. Like, it finally started hitting its stride, I was looking at getting some figures, and then it was gone. And then they brought out DC Essentials, which lasted like 2 waves before McFarlane took over the DC stuff. So even though it was a different company at the helm, there was still a bad taste in my mouth from those previous years of inconsistency. So I waited, I held off, and I watched. And then Peacemaker came out and I really wanted a Peacemaker toy, so there you go, that's what finally got me to give it a go. But in buying Peacemaker, I also kind of went down a rabbit hole, because I got these guys as well. Yeah, sorry, bank account. I tried. But this is the guy that we'll be actually looking at today. So, without further ado, we should probably bust him open and actually see if he was worth the pretty penny I spent on him. I'm not going to waste any time on the box because DC Multiverse has been going for about 2, maybe 3 years at this point, and the boxes haven't really changed. Like, it's a rectangular prism, it's black, white, and blue, it's got a DC logo, you know, character name. It's not groundbreaking, it's a box. Okay, so after struggling to get him out of the box, not because of any issue with the packaging, but because I'm generally incompetent like that, I've got everything out. And I'm going to start by touching on these. These are good. I actually really like the texture work on this. Like, it's a very nice sort of leathery texture. I do like the articulation. The arm joint is very, very tight, but like that's like a shoulder thing. I imagine it kicks forward. Elbow bends, there's a swivel at the elbow. The articulation of the wrist is kind of wonky, not gonna lie, that's not pretty, but then again, with King Shark having these really meaty forearms that kind of like, he has no wrist. So I kind of get that. I kind of get why they went with what they did. Not the prettiest, but you know, the other way around is not as bad. It's still not the best, but I get it. Like, I get what they were dealing with, I understand. He also has wrist swivel, and it's on both arms. The paint on the inside of the arms and the outside, it's great, I like it. You know, not much more to be said. It's good, it's chunky, it's heavy. So that's cool. God, I think I might get the King Shark freaking now, damn it. Another thing that came in the packaging that I didn't actually realize was this card. I looked at the back of the boxes for the other guys, and they all seem to come with a card. I didn't realize that at first, so that's kind of neat. As far as accessories for the actual toy go, we get a neat little black plastic display base. It's you know, it's good. It's nice. The plastic feels like a good quality. It feels nice. It's what can you do? It's got DC varnished on the front there and a single peg. Okay, you know what? I'm being facetious here. It's good that we've got like something like this, because some figures, regardless of the toy line, don't always stand up, no matter how hard you try. So having this is going to be quite useful, especially if I just put it on the shelf somewhere. It's small enough that it won't really get in the way, and it will help the figure stand. Honestly, that's actually quite nice. I quite like that. We also get a sword. I think I remember him using a sword in the movie. I don't remember when, though. I mean, it's a good sword. It's got a nice model. It's actually quite pretty. It's got some nice details here at the hilts. I like the way the guard is. I like the pommel at the end. It's quite flat with some nice little tiny details in there as well. Like, it's just a nice, pretty little sword. It's not particularly sharp. It's a little pointy, but it looks sharp, which is the point. And that's it. He has no guns, no axes, no blow dart pipes. The only thing he comes with is a sword, which is a bit underwhelming, but also I don't entirely know how DC Multiverse handles its budgeting or how many accessories we tend to get. If they could have loaded up with accessories, Peacemaker might have been one of the guys to do that with. Speaking of, boom! There he is, Peacemaker himself. Starting off with this head sculpt, I quite like it. Now there are two head sculpt variants for Peacemaker. The one I have is the helmeted version, but there is an unhelmeted version out there in the world. That one, actually, by the way, comes with an axe rather than a sword. I don't know why both figures couldn't come with both. Anyway, point is, this is the one I went with. For A, I feel that the helmet completes the Peacemaker look, and B, I actually think that this has the better likeness to John Cena. When it comes to faces, they are hard to replicate because there's so many small details and elements to them, different pigments and colours and imperfections that are hard to replicate in plastic. So a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to making a human face in toy form is in paint or print work. And there isn't a lot of paint or print work here as far as making the face look more like John Cena. So where this helmeted head has a bit of an advantage over the fully revealed head is that much of the face is missing, and a lot of the work as far as making this look like John Cena comes in with that jawline. John Cena has a defined jawline, and this looks quite similar, especially in the chin. The way the chin, I think it's called a cleft, the chin cleft is there, that looks a lot like John Cena to me. The way the lips sit on the face, even the little bit, I don't even know what it's called, the area where the moustache goes, under the nose. But that all looks a lot like John Cena to me. So that looking like John Cena, but the rest of the face being obscured by the helmet makes it look more like John Cena than the fully revealed head, at least in my opinion. That being said, that doesn't mean this face is without any paintwork at all. The lips, as you can see, have a really nice color to them. I quite like the tone that they use for the lips. And those eyes, those are brilliant. I don't know if this line has any issues with side eye, but if there is any, I'm not dealing with it here. That is beautiful, that is perfect, and that is pristine. Love that kind of detail on my figures. That is great. The head is actually in two pieces, by the way. The actual face and the helmet are two separate pieces. The helmet is a sort of a softer material that seems to have been glued in place. It doesn't come off. That would defeat the purpose of an alternate helmetless sculpt. I don't think there's anything under there, and I don't want to find out, so I'm not pulling it off anytime soon. But the helmet itself looks great. I love the gunmetal color they've got going on here. I love the detail that they have in there, which of course they've got quite a bit. There's a bit of detail on the back as well, not as much, but they didn't skip out on any detail work on the back just because it's the back of the helmet, so that is brilliant. Speaking of detail work, moving to the body. I love the colors here. I love the way that they pop. I love the red, I love the blue, I really love the yellow and the dove of peace in the middle there. I only know that's the dove of peace because of the show, thank you. It's great. I really like the colors I think they really pop in a very nice way. Both a great representation of the costume, but also just looks great in action figure form. Now, the torso and the groin here are separate pieces. They are these separate, soft, rubbery pieces, which I was not expecting, and actually, I thought the figure was just lacking in articulation. It made the figure look very bulky and kind of brick-like, but really, it's actually quite posable, but we'll get to that later. As a wrestling fan, I have seen John Cena shirtless more times than I care to count, so I can confirm that I have a pretty decent understanding of this man's body shape, and I think this thick rubber overlay is a really good decision as far as trying to replicate his shape. He is an astonishingly built man, and this figure replicates that shape to him very nicely. I also want to note that the torso underneath the rubber actually is sculpted, so there's actually some sculpted detail there. As you can see, the shirt runs in, so when you push him forward, you can see some detail, and if you actually push him back, you'll see there's a bit of sculpted detail there as well. So they didn't skimp out on sculpting details in the actual torso underneath. I don't know if the sculpt goes any higher, or if the actual torso has any more details in it. I just know that for the lower area there, they do sculpt those pieces to help with maintaining the figure's look while articulating. The belt looks awesome. The pants are nice. There's a nice texture on both the torso and the legs, like sculpted texture, but they're separate textures, so they feel different. The arms here have a similar texture to the torso, but I think because of the material, they feel slightly different. I will also say actually that the colors between the shirts, like the softer plastic and the harder plastic for both the blue and the red, pretty on point. There is no major difference in the colors there, which is sometimes a problem when it comes to different kinds of plastics. Looks wise, sculpt wise, and even paint wise, crisp, clean, and detailed. I like this. I like this a lot. Articulation. So starting off with this head sculpt, he can look up like that, and he can look down like that. Like that, and like that. He can also obviously look side to side. He can go all the way around, and he's got this amazing tilt ability. I think this is because it's a barbell joint. So there's a ball joint in the neck, ball joint in the head, and it just allows for a lot of movement. There is a bit of movement back and forth, and even up and down for the arms inside the torso. I think the arms on these toys are connected by a ball joint. So it's not really a butterfly joint, it's just that there's a ball joint in there that allows for a bit of movement within the socket. Whatever it is, it allows for full arm rotation, and there is a hinge that allows the arm to go up that far, which is pretty wicked. There is also a bicep swivel, which is the first piece of articulation that I didn't realize he had, because it's actually very well hidden in the sculpt when it's just in its neutral state. When you twist it out, it's a little bit more noticeable because of the sculpt there, but I do digress, it's there. He has a double jointed elbow, which is actually, that's just one of the joints. That's just a single joint of the double jointed elbow bending there. But if you bend the other joint, he has got some movement there. It's a bit of a gappiness, but that level articulation, I'm fine with a bit of gap. The wrists, they are a double pegged hinge. What that means is that there is a swivel in the actual forearm and a swivel at the wrist itself with a hinge motion in between. So you can move it around and sort of reposition things so that you can get him moving up and down, but also if you want to twist it around, you can get him moving back and forth. You can do that with this, which is great. This is one of my favorite joints. This is probably the superior wrist joint in the world of action figures, and the more companies who give us this joint in their figures, the better. The torso, I'm pretty sure there is an ab crunch in there. I'm pretty confident that I have felt him crunch and shift in there. But the rubber piece doesn't allow for it to do much. But I'm pretty sure there is actual movement in there. That's not to really hinder him all that much though, because the waist joint seems to be some kind of ball joint with a massive amount of back movement and a pretty good amount of forward movement. He has of course got some tilt in there because of it, and he twists all the way around, I believe, in fact. So yeah, he still has quite a bit of torso movement, despite the fact that if there is a joint in there, it's very limited. Any limitation is made up for by the fact
that waist allows for a lot of movement as well. His hips will kick forward. There's a bit of a bend there in his groin area. That's why it's made of a soft rubber, because of that. It doesn't limit him too much. He actually kicks back quite a bit, but that also bends his butt flap a bit, so be careful. His leg goes out quite far. That is an impressive amount. No thigh cut, but there is a twist inside the hip. And from what I've seen with the other DC Multiverse figures, that's kind of standard. Weird choice to remove that thigh cut and replace it with that twist, but I mean, it's fine. It's not terrible. It's not the worst thing ever. Another joint that I actually didn't realize he had, I thought these were single jointed knees. I thought that there, you can see that crease there. I thought that was the only joint, because looking from the front, I couldn't see the other joint. From the side, you can easily see there's another hinge there, but for some reason that lower joint was just, I didn't see it. So I thought he only had a single knee, but no, he has a double knee. And it goes all the way up like that. That is pretty good. Almost as athletic and bendable as the actual John Cena, who is deceptively flexible. He has a double pin hinge in his ankle as well, so his ankle goes up and down on the hinge. He twists around, but he also has ankle pivots. So between the two twists and the hinge there, you can get some ankle pivot. You can get the effect of having pretty good ankle pivot overall. So it's a bit awkward, it's a bit weird, it's not as simple as just a standard straightforward ankle pivot like what you get with Marvel Legends, but it gets the job done. He also has toes, which go up a disturbing amount, maybe further than the actual toe probably should. I mean, especially in a thick boot like this, but yeah, his toes do that, and that's great.
He looks like he's way less articulated than he actually is, but you can get him into some cool poses. Articulation is a win, and combined with the good sculpt work, visually this guy's just a lot of fun. Overall, Peacemaker here is a win. Like, genuinely, I love this. There are minor complaints with the accessories, which is kind of actually a major complaint because of how often I brought it up, but ultimately forgivable, considering that the actual toy itself is really, really good. Sculpt work, awesome. Paint work, does its job. Articulation, better than I expected it to be based on how he looks. The use of soft plastics to help give him a look while also not avoiding having any limitation in his articulation, great. The fact that we have the double pin wrists, beautiful. The fact that his face looks like John Cena's face, remarkable. The little base at the bottom here, which helps, with stability, which I actually think is going to be very useful in the long run. Awesome. And the fact that we also get 2 Build-A-Figure pieces, actually maybe that's why we don't get any accessories. Because he's got the giant shark arms. It is a big, thick piece. Like, those are some thick, heavy pieces of Build-A-Figure over there. Like, that is a lot of plastic. So maybe that's why. That actually makes a lot of sense. So if you're like me, and you've held off on getting any DC Multiverse stuff, or if you do collect it, but for some reason you didn't get Peacemaker, and you've watched the show, and you've gone, you know what, I do want that Peacemaker toy, I highly encourage you to chase him up, because he is splendid. Everything you could possibly want in this price range, it's pretty much done here. And obviously because of the Build-A-Figure, I feel like the true value of this figure goes up if you got the whole wave, but just on its own, I'd say this was a win. I give Peacemaker here 4 toilet seat helmets out of 5. Well, I think there's only really one thing left to do.
On a flying thing.